and helping, and men and women, but mainly couples, helping them to repair their relationships and give them that experience of love and connection that they desire. And so a lot of these videos and live streams I've been making are geared towards couples and relationships. I do have men's content that comes out with boundaries and brotherhood. I've decided to kind of make that separation. But I am still creating that content. So if you are a guy and you're looking for that, you can check it out at Boundaries and Brotherhood. I also probably put some clips up here as well, but I got to get to that. But in any case, tonight, it's as I know it's another late night. It's been a long day. I know I'm supposed to do it at 2, but again, sometimes things get away from me, and I'm trying to help people, so that's got to take precedence, right? Saving relationships and helping these men and women, husbands and wives, have the best possible relationship. That's got to be priority number one. However, I still want to make sure I get something in the books for you guys so that you guys have something, daily that you could chew on that could possibly help you in your relationship. So tonight, what I want to talk about resentment. I want to talk about resentment. And the reason I want to talk about resentment is because it plagues relationships like crazy. It's insane how much resentment plagues relationships. So we're going to talk about what resentment is. We're going to talk about how it's created. We're going to talk about what's the purpose of it, because it does serve a purpose, and then we're going to talk about whether that purpose is actually functional, and is it possible to resolve resentment? And then also asking ourselves the questions, who exactly do we resent? Because you might be surprised to find that the person you think you resent is not actually the person you resent. So first, let's go into it. I'm not going to go into all this extra stuff. Let's just hop into it, right? What is resentment? What exactly is resentment? And so resentment is a defense mechanism your brain uses to keep you safe. That's what resentment is. And how it does that, how is resentment created? So what it does, this is how your brain operates. Your brain's primary purpose is to keep you alive. That is its default purpose. If you do not train your brain, if you do not do anything, any type of nothing like that, then you're always going to default to what keeps me safe. And more often than not is usually not, the best behavior, right? You'll see a lot of people, isolating, you'll see people, maybe being overly aggressive, or you'll see people do all types of stuff, run, a lot of anxiety. You'll see a lot of people do a lot of things that aren't necessarily healthy, that don't necessarily help, you grow as a person. So now just imagine that same thing in your relationship. Imagine that you have that resentment. It's supposed to keep you safe, but it's not. So let's talk about how it's created. So what ends up happening is in our lives, we end up getting information from people. So let's say we're in our interaction with somebody and something happens, something takes place. They do something, they say something, and it bothers you, right? So what ends up happening is first we take it personal. And there's a reason why we take it personal. We take the offense personal because we don't have all the information. And so your brain just knows, okay, something happened that didn't make us feel good. So that's a red flag number one, right? We don't feel good. So if we don't feel good, that means we're going to die. That's how your brain thinks if you don't train it. And so now what it does is, okay, I don't have all the information on this situation. I think I know what's going on here, but I don't have all the information. So what your brain is going to do is going to take bits and pieces of the information that it does have. It's going to combine it with your experiences, combine it with things that happened in the past, and voila, you have resentment. You took something personal and you created resentment. And again, resentment is supposed to be a shield. Because once you put all that together, you now have an idea of a potential threat to your system. Because they said what they said, because they did what they did, they're a threat. And I'm creating that image in my mind of this person being a threat. Maybe it's your mom, maybe it's your dad, maybe it's a sibling or a teacher or a classmate or your spouse, because we don't have all the information. That's how resentment is made. We take bits and pieces because we're trying to keep ourselves safe. We personalize it. And by personalizing, we take those bits and pieces. We create this image of what we think happened, of how of the perceived slight, of how they hurt us and how they did this to us. And then we create this image of the person in our mind so that we now know how to protect and defend ourselves in the future. Because now we have something locked away, like, okay, that person is dangerous because they did X, Y, Z. They didn't take responsibility and they don't care about me. They don't love me, and they're going to be hurting me, and all these things like that. That's what we end up doing. That's what we end up doing. And as we end up doing that, it poisons our relationship. So let me also say this as well. So resentment isn't made, more often than not, it's not made right away. It's usually not made right away. It usually takes, especially in relationships, it takes behaviors happening over time, misinterpretations, the little bits and pieces happening over time. Because what ends up happening is our brain will lock on to those negative things that happen, and our brain will start looking for those negative things because it's trying to keep us safe. It will literally ignore positive things, and what it will do is it will start how do I put it? And it will start identifying the negative things. And as it continues to identify the negative things, it starts painting a picture and a pattern, because our brain is a meaning-making machine. And so, unfortunately, it starts taking little bits and pieces and strings them all together, and now creates a narrative of how horrible this person is, and how they're trying to hurt you, and how they don't care about you, and how they don't love you. And so now you're distancing yourself, or you fight back, or you're mean, or you have contempt, or all these things like that. You start doing these things because you're trying to keep yourself safe. You're either trying to attack the threat or stay away from the threat, but the threat isn't actually your spouse. I'm going to say that again. The threat isn't actually your spouse. And this leads to the other question I just asked earlier. Who do you actually resent? Who do you actually resent? You actually resent your spouse, your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend? Or do you resent the image of them that you created in your mind based off of the incomplete information you've been stringing together over time? Ask yourself that question. Because in your mind, you think you know what their intention is. In your mind, you think you know what they feel. In your mind, you think you know what they think. That's what you do. And so then you create this image in your mind of this person who is your enemy, this person who doesn't love you, this person who doesn't care about you, the person who wants to use you and abuse you. And then you start labeling them a narcissist, or they're gaslighting you, or that all these things. You start listing all these things about this image of a person in your mind, and you attack the person in real life, your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend. You attack them in real life as if that's the person in your mind. That's what we do. I'm here to tell you right now, that image of your spouse, your husband, your wife that you created in your mind based off the incomplete information that you've been stringing together all this time, that's not them. The person you have in your mind probably is a horrible person. They probably are nasty. They probably are mean. They probably don't care. They probably are trying to sabotage you. They probably are trying to hurt you. That person in your mind probably is a really evil, wicked person. However, that person doesn't exist in real life. They don't exist. Because they can't exist, because the thing is, you've never taken the time to ask questions to understand where your partner was coming from, where your husband, your wife was coming from. And if you thought you asked questions, more often than not, we ask questions to respond, not to understand, to reinforce this image of the person we have in our mind. That's what we end up doing. We're not really trying to understand. We're not trying to eliminate the resentment. We're just reinforcing it over and over and over again. That's what we're doing. And you wonder why you guys can't process anything. You wonder why you can't get over things that happened in the past. You wonder why you guys can't connect. You wonder why the love won't flow. You wonder why you guys can't communicate. Because you're not trying to communicate, and it makes sense. You're not trying to communicate with your enemy. That's who you created up here. Again, resentment is supposed to be a shield. It's supposed to be protective. It's supposed to be a way for your brain to find a threat and either eliminate it or stay away from it. But again, it's not, it's a question. Is it a functional defense system? Is resentment a functional defense system? The answer is no, it's not. It's not a functional defense system. As a matter of fact, it's a terrible defense system. Because it's not based on reality. It's not based off the real intentions behind the person. It's not based off that. It's based off of a made-up story, a made-up narrative with very little context. Oh man, I can't believe anything. Oh, I can't believe she looked at me that way. How dare she? Oh my gosh, I can't believe she forgot the milk. He just doesn't care. He's just so careless. And then what you want to start doing is having a conversation with the person sitting in front of you, your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend. You want to have a conversation with them and tell them how horrible they are. Tell them what they need to fix. Tell them where they're falling short. Tell them where they need help. That's what you end up wanting to do. And of course, this person is sitting, I'm being completely and totally, misrepresented. I'm being totally, called out my name. I'm being totally mischaracterized, right? And so now what they do now, they start to go back and push against you. Now, what do you say? You're not validating me. You're not understanding me. You're not empathizing with me. Which is a strange thing to say, because why would I need my enemy to validate and empathize with me? That doesn't make any sense. You don't need your enemy to validate or empathize with you, because remember, that's who you're fighting with up here. That's who's doing all those horrible things to you personally. That's who's doing that. But that person doesn't exist in real life. And a lot of times people are looking confused. When you're sharing what you're sharing, tell me, you can stop me if you've seen. I promise you'll be sharing these things and people will look at you confused. Like, what are you talking about? What do you mean I don't love you? What, huh? Well, I just did this for you. I just did that for you. I just showed up for you. I did all these things. I don't get where you're coming from. How do you say I don't love you? That's what resentment does. That's why your partner looks confused. That's why your husband or your wife looks confused when you say those things. When you say you don't listen, what are you talking about? I don't get it. I mean, and of course, sometimes genuinely people don't listen, right? They don't necessarily have the listening skills and things of that nature. That much is true. Like that does happen, right? But I'm talking about like when the person is listening and they are leaving the floor to you and you're getting all that time and you still say you don't listen, you don't care, and you do all these things. That's why I look at you confused. Because the things you're saying only make sense to the image of the person you have in your mind. That's the only one they make sense to, because that's the only one that fits that description. That person in your mind, that version of your husband in your mind, that version of your wife in your mind, that person is a manipulator. That person's a gaslighter. That person's a narcissist. That person's a sociopath. That person doesn't care. That person hates you. That person's trying to sabotage you. That person is trying to ruin your life. The person in your mind. And if your husband or wife knew what that person looked like and how they responded and how they acted, they'd probably be on the same page with you saying, yeah, no, that person's a jerk. Screw them. That's probably what they would say. Rightfully so. The fact of the matter is that's not the case. It's not the case at all. More often than not, because we have that resentment, because we have that negative mindset, because we have all that, and that negative sentiment override, because we have all that, it's very difficult for us to start breaking out of resentment. And unfortunately, if we don't do something about it, it compounds over time. One mistake becomes two mistakes, becomes three, and it starts growing exponentially. They compound. It's not just 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. It's 1, 3, 7, 9, 10, 14, 26, whatever. It starts exponentially growing from there. That's what ends up happening. And unless you know how to resolve resentment, because it is possible to eliminate all resentment from your marriage in any other area of your life, it is very, very, very possible to do that. It does take work. It does take self-insight. It does take understanding that we can't take things personal. It takes work to get these things done, to eliminate resentment. But I promise you, once you know how to eliminate resentment and once you start doing it and putting those things into practice, I'm telling you right now, man, there's no life that's sweeter. There's no life that's sweeter. You're not going to have any enemies. You're not going to get into these screaming matches with anybody. You're going to be more emotionally regulated and calm than you've ever been in your entire life. You're going to be able to make connections with your husband, your wife so much easier. You're not going to be fighting for days on end. You're not going to be giving each other the silent treatment for days on end. Once you learn how to eliminate resentment, I'm telling you, your relationship will take off to the next level. But I will tell you this, by doing that, it does require commitment to the process. It requires you to be consistent with your behaviors. It absolutely does. Because if you can't remain consistent with your behaviors, and when it comes to eliminating resentment, then it's quite possible for it to come back. Or sometimes you get caught up doing the work without the actual meaning behind it. And unfortunately, if you do that, then guess what happens? You're going to end up with the same results as if you didn't do anything at all. Because doing it because it's the right thing to do and doing it consistently, that's what we need to do. That's a big step. Now, and when it comes to resolving resentment and living a peaceful life, right? Peace, you don't have to wait for someone to give it to you. You can have that for yourself. But like I said, it's been a long day and I am tired. It's been a long day and a very, very short night. And so I don't have the energy to go into it in full depth today, but I will go in it tomorrow. We will talk about how to not take things personal. We will talk about how to forgive and have compassion. We will talk about how to set boundaries, and we will talk about being able to operate in excellence. And of course, emotional regulation is tied into all of that, because I really do want you guys to be able to eliminate resentment in your relationship. And the best thing about it is, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, the most beautiful thing about relationships is the skills that you learn in your relationship, you can apply them everywhere else. You can apply except intimacy, right? If you're married, you're not sleeping around and stuff like that. But outside of that, right? The communication skills, the emotional regulation, the validation and empathy, the using I statements, the being patient, all that you can use it everywhere else. And you can start actually resolving resentment with your parents, resentment with your bosses, resentment with all these other people once we go through these steps, because you could use it across the board for all of them. But that's all I got today, because like I said, I'm out of energy and I need to get home and get something to eat and lay it down for the night. Self-care is important. And as I tell everybody, I practice what I preach and I live by it. So that's what I'm going to go do. But if this resonates with you, if you do want more information, if you want a more in-depth, even deeper than what we can do in these live streams, please reach out, set up a consultation, your free consultation, and let's get together. Let's talk. Let's get you the help you need, the help you deserve. Right? Because you don't have to be stuck in the wheel of resentment, right? In the cycle, and you're going round and round and doing the same thing. You don't have to be stuck there. You could be free. You can be free from resentment, where your heart is not full of hate and bitterness, and you're hyper vigilant, and you're waiting for the next shoe to drop, and you're snapping, and you're overwhelmed, and you're anxious, and then you're angry. You don't have to live that way. That's a toxic way to live. It's destructive to your system, to your body. It's no way to live, and you don't have to live that way. So if you need help, please reach out and let me know, right? I would love to help get you on the right path, and a path of freedom where you don't have to feel resentment anymore. But until then, I want you just to remember, never ever forget that you are not alone. Y'all take care. Have a great, awesome, and blessed night, and I'll see y'all again tomorrow.